Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Anton, and welcome to today's video for Honkai Star Rail. Today, we're going to be doing a tier list ranking all the characters. We're going to be doing this because 1.3 is coming up soon, and I just wanted to rate all of the characters based on how they're feeling in the current patch. I did this also for the previous patch. For the people who haven't seen that video, just really quick, this is the old tier list I created. I'm also going to be using Genshin.gg's tier list over tier makers like I used in the last video because I just like how Genshin.gg's tier list looks. But honestly, a lot of these characters are going to stay in the same tier, but some of them will be in different places because we have gotten new characters, of course, Kafka, Luka, and Blade, and we've even gotten newer stuff too, like relics as well, light cones, etc., etc. So, let's start going. Now, first off, who do we have? We got Bailu. I don't think she's really going to change. I like Bailu in the A tier. She's a good healer. A little bit of RNG in her heal, but it's whatever. Luocha really has just kind of cemented himself as the best healer, so yes, while Bailu and Natasha do things better, some things better than Luocha, they just can't compete with Luocha, who is obviously going to be an S tier. I feel like if you don't put Luocha in S tier, you're trolling. But we'll get there eventually. Next up, we have Blade. Blade has proven himself, I feel. He's just proven that he puts out a lot of damage, solid AoE, good sustained by himself, and then you pair him up with a healer, especially a good healer like Luocha. He is crazy. Next up, we got Bronya. I don't think we need to say much about Bronya. I feel like enough has been said about Bronya. She's just probably the best support. The only other support that comes close is maybe Tingyun. But Bronya, you just throw her with any kind of carry, and she is great. Pretty much every carry loves Bronya. Then we got Clara. I like Clara. One of my favorite characters. Great in the early game. Player as like a weird tank. Solid in the late game too as a damage dealer. I'm only going to put her in A tier instead of S tier. Reasoning for that is she doesn't kill things as fast as some of the S tier damage dealers that are going to be up here, like Blade. I'll have Seele up in S tier too. And I feel like if you are a damage dealer who doesn't kill as fast as, or just kill fast, you don't get as high of a ranking because things like MOC want you to clear things in as fast as possible, as few cycles as possible. And things like Seele, things like Blade, they can do like 0 cycles, 1 cycle maybe, while Clara, I feel like, needs at least 3, sometimes even 6 for some enemies. Next up, we got Gepard. Last time I put Gepard in S tier, I think I'm still going to keep him in S tier. He's probably the best defensive character that's not a healer, in my opinion. He's just so good, you can even replace healers in a team and have Gepard just giving shields to replace a healer. So I think he deserves his spot. And Ice is a very good defensive element too, so it just works with everything Gepard's trying to do. Next up, we got Himeko. For a while, Himeko was kind of a joke, considered like one of the worst characters in the game. I feel like more and more people are, starting to come around to Himeko. Previously, I put her in A tier. I feel like I ranked her a little too high. I'm going to put her in B tier now. Honestly, I could see A tier, but I really do think I'm going to just put her in B tier. I like her. I like her kit. I feel like she just doesn't put out enough damage. Even if you do build her, you can actually 0 clear some MOC stuff with her too, but if you build a carry character, you can just 0 clear with a lot of stuff. So Himeko is a solid B tier for me. She's good at AoE and she does damage, whatever. Jing Yuan, speaking of AoE and damage, Jing Yuan, been a lot of controversy around this guy, but I think Jing Yuan is a solid A tier character. Solid AoE. I think what's gonna, in my opinion, hold him back from S tier, at least right now in my tier list, is Lightning Lord is really slow. And that's basically it. Lightning Lord is just super slow and takes forever. You need to send out an invitation to Lightning Lord. It'll take like 3 weeks to get there, and then eventually he deals damage. He hits hard. Jing Yuan and the Lightning Lord do hit very hard, though. So I will give him that, but Similar to Clara, he does take a while to get going, and the Lightning Lord takes a long time. Next up, we got Kafka. Now, I also, speaking about like controversy, I know there's a little bit of controversy with Kafka. I personally think Kafka is an S tier character. I think she puts out good damage. Even if you don't put any other DOT characters in a team with her, she still does good damage as the solo DOT character. You play her in like some kind of hyper carry style, would say a Bronya, an Asta, a Tingyun, etc., maybe Pela, Silverwolf, whatever. And she can zero clear, and she just does a lot of damage, and she does a lot of damage fast, and that is basically doing a lot of damage, and doing a lot of damage fast is what I'm looking for when I'm ranking damage dealers. Next up, we got Luocha. Not much to talk about Luocha. He's just so good as a healer. Very skill point friendly. Imaginaries, not the greatest element, but got a good good cleanse, that got that feel, got a good emergency heal, just a great healer overall. Seele, again, like I said it earlier, but S tier. She hits hard, probably the best single target damage dealer. Her entire kit's just great. Silverwolf, I'm ranking a lot of these characters S tier, by the way. It just so happens there are a lot of S tier characters paired up in this list, but Silverwolf, also S tier. I honestly don't see Silverwolf falling from S tier anytime soon. Some people are saying like, oh, well, when more and more characters come out, maybe you can make mono teams without Silverwolf. I still feel like even if you do make mono teams without Silverwolf, just put it in Silverwolf in your best mono team. She's so good. Like, plus, and then that's also assuming you have all those characters, all of them are built, but for players who don't have all those characters or all those characters built, Silverwolf's great. Plus her, I believe they're called bugs, just the stat reductions, you know, defense reduction, speed reduction, whatever you want to do to enemies is really good. She's really good at debuffing, so I think she's going to stay up there at S tier. Only character who does something even close to what she does is, I guess, Pela. Don't get me wrong, Pela's great, but she's no Silverwolf. Next up, we got the Fire MC. Here's the thing with the Fire MC. I like the Fire MC. I think Fire MC is a pretty solid character. I don't know where I like him, though. Like, I bounce between B tier, and I also bounce between A tier. I think I'm gonna put them in A tier. I'm not the biggest fan of Fire MC and MOC, but they are great at just making it through things like Simulated Universe and story stuff where you don't have to go fast, and all you care about is survivability. So, I like them. I think they're solid. Next up, we got the Physical Trailblazer. I think the Physical Trailblazer is the worst character in the game. Don't really feel like many people will argue with me with that. Like, sure, some people might say like, oh, there's Herta, there's Arlan, whatever. I think Herta and Arlan both have a role in the game. You could argue, well, Physical Trailblazer has AoE. If you need AoE physical, sure, but even then, they're just not that great. And even their technique is bad. Their technique, I believe, is like a heal or whatever. It's if they had a better technique, I could maybe squeeze them up to C, but I think they're bad. Welt's a little weird. I feel like if you build Welt as a support character, he's S tier as a support. If you build him as a damage dealer, he's A tier. I'm putting him in A tier as, again, I just want to reiterate that. As a damage dealer, Welt is A tier. As a support, he's S tier. I can't put him in both, so I'm going to put him in A tier. But just know, I really think he is a good support. I'm not a big fan of Imaginary Break, though, because it does slow you down in things like MOC, but I think he's fine. Next up, we have Yanqing. Last time I put Yanqing in B tier, I feel like I might have been a little harsh on the guy, and he should probably be in A tier, and I think I'll put him in A tier, but I really am not a big fan of Yanqing. First off, he's ice, and I'm not a big fan of ice element with damage dealers. It's not really that great offensively for an element. Maybe you could pair him with like Pela and Gepard, make a mono quantum team with Silverwolf, because Pela does buff ice damage, I believe. So that's kind of cute, but my other problem with Yanqing is he doesn't want to get hit. it's really hard to do that because even with things like taunts from the Fire MC, there are enemies that do AoE, so you really need things like shields. And big shields at that, so basically that's forcing Yanqing to be paired with Gepard. Not everyone has Gepard, and you can't just pair him with Gepard, you need a well-built Gepard. But if you do that, and so if you have that Yanqing and you have a well-built Gepard, you can get numbers that are just a smidgen below Seele, in my opinion. But all that work just to not even reach Seele numbers is why I'm only putting Yanqing at A tier. He honestly might be falling down to B tier in the next, in the Jing Liu patch, depending on how good Jing Liu is. Next up, we got Arlan. I think Arlan is C tier. Yes, he got a new relic set, Longevious Disciple or whatever it's called. I still think he's just bad. The poor man's blade, basically. Yes, he's a little skill point friendly, but I just feel like if you want a lightning damage dealer and you don't have Jing Yuan or Kafka, I think Serval is just better. Next up, we got Asta. I feel like Asta is super underrated. I think last time I put Asta in A tier. I'm keeping her in A tier. I know some people really think Asta is only B tier. I can see arguments for that, but I just think she's so good. I wouldn't say she's as good as, say, Tingyun, but I just think Asta is really good as a support. Speed is great. Now that more and more people are starting to understand how speed works better, I think Asta is starting to get the respect she deserves. So, Asta, A tier. Dan Heng, B tier. Not much to talk about him. He's a fairly simple guy. Does good damage too, but single target damage is not that desirable at the moment. Herta, I'll put her in C tier. I honestly feel like I could even put her at B tier. A well-built Herta does some good AoE damage with, well, both her ults, her skills, and her follow-ups, but she needs a lot of resources poured into her just to get up to, say, like, Himeko status. Maybe like a poorly built Jing Yuan on a good day. But I like her, I built her, and she's a lot of fun, but sadly she's not that great. Next up, we got Hook. I'm putting Hook in B tier. Solid single target fire damage, and I would say she's a little bit worse than Himeko. Yes, Himeko and Hook are doing different things. Himeko is AoE, Hook is single target, but I think they're, even thinking about that, I do think Himeko is better than Hook. Personally, I think once Topaz comes out, I think I'm going to put Hook down to C tier because Topaz will kind of just power creep Hook in my opinion. But I think for now, Hook is currently in B tier until Topaz comes out, and we know what Topaz does. Luka, good solid single target damage, B tier. Again, I really feel like if you want to be an A or S tier damage dealer, you got to be good in MOC in my opinion. For me, in my tier list. Luka just doesn't do that great AoE. Great single target, but he's terrible against enemies who have enemy team comps that have a lot of stuff. March, I don't know. I go back and forth on March. I think she's B tier. She's solid. Like, the problem with March is I feel like Gepard and Trailblazer, Fire Trailblazer are just better than her in most scenarios, except for where Clara is involved. So I'm going to put her in B tier. Pretty good with some Eidolons too, though. So maybe in the future, if we get more characters like Clara who want to be hit, but don't necessarily want to take damage like Blade, March could go up to A tier. We got Natasha. I think Natasha is B tier. I could honestly see Natasha falling more and more as this game's life goes on. But right now, there are only 3 healers. In my opinion, she is the worst of the healers of Luocha compared to Luocha and Bailu, but she is still solid and you will play her because she is free and you usually want to have 2 healers. Next up, we got Pela. I like Pela. I think Pela is a solid support character. A little situational though. The defense tread on her is nice. The ability to strip buffs from enemies is also nice, but very situational. Again, I think she's just solid though. Fairly skill point friendly too. Might be a little bit mean to put her in B tier. She probably deserves A tier, but I think she's a solid B tier. Qingque. I love Qingque. I don't have any qualms about where I'm putting her. Some people might. I think she is a solid A tier damage dealer. if you have Eidolons for her, at least E4. If you have even E6, I believe is the one where you get a skill point back, you could even maybe push her up to S tier, maybe like A+, like between A and S tier here. But I really like Qingque. Without Eidolons, I'd probably put her in B tier, like E0. Qingque would be B, maybe even C according to some people, but I think she just does really good damage. Yes, she's a little RNG dependent, but that's part of the fun of Qingque in all honesty. Next we got Sampo. Previously I had Sampo in C tier. I think I'm bumping him up to B tier now because of the existence of Kafka. I do think he is fairly good paired with Kafka. Personally, I do think Kafka's better off without him, but he's fine with Kafka, and Kafka is fine with Sampo, but I honestly do think something like Kafka plus Tingyun plus another supporter like a Bronya, and then maybe a healer like Natasha, like a hyper carry style Kafka is better than Kafka Sampo, but you can go both. Personally, I go Kafka Sampo plus support plus healer, except for MOC. In MOC, I do hyper carry Kafka. But yeah, I think Sampo has managed to squeeze himself up to B tier now, thanks to Kafka. Kafka is pulling him up. Then we got Serval. Last time I had Serval in B tier, I think she's still in B tier. Pretty solid for a for what she does for a 4-star. Pretty good at like just letting you get skill points, so she's fine. Jing Yuan kind of does outclass her, and so does Kafka, but she's okay. Some people will argue that she's better than Jing Yuan and better than Kafka. I'd say those people are crazy, but I haven't thought too much about how she compares with Jing Yuan and Kafka, so I could be wrong. Next up, we got Sushang, one of my favorite characters in the game. I actually use her a lot in game too. I'm only going to put her in B tier. Single target damage, plus she is very skill point hungry unless you have E1. Once you have E1, she's still a little skill point hungry though, so those are kind of two things that are working against her, but she's really good at breaking, so I think she has that going for her. And the other problem I feel like is that her kit and the way you build her, she does kind of want to stick around for a while to start building up damage from things like, I can't remember the name of the light cone of hers, but like sword dance, sword style, whatever. But yeah, I feel like she can't really zero cycle is what I'm trying to say here. But she does put out good damage, but it takes her a while to get going. Next up, we got Tingyun. I'd say Tingyun is probably the second best support in the game after Bronya. You could make an argument for putting her at S tier. I think she falls just a little bit short. Like if I had another like an S plus tier and then an S tier, I would put Tingyun up there, but I'd say like Tingyun is only A tier because I'm not putting a Tingyun up here with like Bronya, Luocha, Seele, all of them, Silverwolf. But it does feel a little disingenuous to put her down here with say like Yanqing. And then our last character we have Yukong. Now, here's a problem. I feel like Yukong is really tough to rank. I know some people feel like Yukong is probably D tier. I think those people are dumb. I know some people think Yukong is S tier, and I can see their reasoning for that. I personally think Yukong is B tier. Yukong is really, really good if you can build her well. She's just so hard to build, and then she's very reliant on your enemies not using anything like freezes or imaginary suspension or whatever and screwing up your turn order. But if you can somehow dodge freezes and imaginary suspensions and have a really good turn order, Yukong puts out a lot of damage. Now, in, say, what is it called? In MOC, where, you know, not many cycles are going by and you just need to get a buff really quickly and you just need stats and damage, Yukong's great. So yeah, I think she's pretty solid. She has her role, but she's really tough to build. And the fact that things like Bronya and Tingyun exist, and Bronya Tingyun is much, much easier to build and easier to play, Yukong's going to be in B tier for me. I might be a little hard on her, and she probably does deserve A tier, but I'm going to just put her at B tier. So yeah, that is going to be it for today's video. That is the entire roster of the current characters in Honkai Star Rail. Love to hear your opinion on this. Like, do you think I'm being hard on Yukong? Do you think I'm being too nice to some of these characters. Maybe you think I'm being too nice to Yanqing or Qingque. Maybe you think I'm being too nice to Kafka. I know some people would put Kafka not in S tier. They think Kafka is kind of mid. I would disagree with those people, but I'd love to hear your opinions. Maybe you think Arlan's really good. I know some people think like Arlan could possibly be A tier with the new relic with Longevious. I don't agree, but I'd love to hear your opinion, and I'd love to hear what you guys have been doing in this patch. How have you been? Have you been in MOC? How have you been in Simulated Universe? What kind of characters are you using, and how have you been using them? And are you looking forward to 1.3 alongside Imbibitor and Xuan? And do you think any of these characters are going to, you know, shift in their rankings with the appearance of Imbibitor and Xuan, and links on top of that as well? Anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it though. If you did, of course, please be sure to leave a like or a comment down below. It always helps me out and always helps out the channel. And if you guys want to keep up with the Honkai Star Rail content, you can always go and subscribe to the channel as well. And if you want to talk to some people about Honkai Star Rail like me, you can go and join my Discord, which always the invitation link will be pinned in a comment down below. And if you want to watch me play some Honkai Star Rail, you can go and check me out over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Zeniton, where I stream pretty much every single day. Anyway, though, with that all said and done, thank you all once more for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!